Everybody, this is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH 286, and we're starting a little bit earlier today. Get the show on the road. Plenty to talk about, although I don't think there'll be anybody leaving the islands today, unless you really, really enjoy headwinds. But anyway, we'll be talking about that shortly. Hang on a minute, I've got oh no, it's back again. All right, the streaming decided to stop and then start again. For some reason, I have to check when we've been away. It pops up onto the wrong internet system here. Anyway, good morning, everybody. We had a lovely weekend, despite the weather, which was nowhere near as bad as was forecast. We went away for the weekend, not very far, just to the west coast, basically, down a little bit, southwest. And on Saturday, we managed a beautiful walk along the sand on the west coast. It's a really quite different coast because of the black sand. Those of you that haven't been to New Zealand, from about the middle of the North Island, certainly from Taranaki area, which is about the middle where it sort of juts out up the coast right through this area, there is black iron sand. It sounds terrible, and it is very messy, but it's just long straights of black glistening sand, with whatever it is, quartz I suppose in it, glistening. And we had a lovely, relatively calm day to do a walk with. It was quite shallow where we were, lots of surf, but just crashing surf. It wasn't any good for the surfers. You have to go further south to a place called Raglan and Piha and places like that, which is fantastic surf for those of you who are surfies. But this just had a lot of short swells coming in as far as the eye could see, actually, just crashing when they got to about 2 meters and then just crashed. But we did a lovely walk along the beach, and in fact the rain didn't start till about 5 o'clock. We did our thing, went from there to the shooting club, did our thing there, got back, and then it started to rain. So we had a really, really good day on Saturday and prepared for Sunday, and even that wasn't too bad. We went to the local motorsports venue, Pukekohe, where the Super 8s are going to be racing next week. It was wet at the start, so I did the very intelligent thing and put David in the car first to do this run. We alternate drivers during the course of the day, and by the time I got on, it was starting to dry out, so not too bad. It's an old course, and the track, which has got the horse track in the middle of it, is on peat, so there's parts of it that are really bumpy. And in the fairly light car that we have, this one, my head just crashed against the roof. Once you're going at speed, you go over this area of bumpy part, and there's all sorts of bits of black felt. I actually looked at the roof of the car, and it doesn't look damaged, so I forgot to tell David I'd check that. But yeah, it was an exciting day, and I did actually think of some of you folk that are first-time passage makers to New Zealand. When I was going around, this is the first time we've been on this motorsport track, because it has a terrible reputation because it's very narrow in parts and sort of uphill and bumpy, and the walls come up very quickly. So we'd always avoided it like the plague, but we decided the time had come. And after my third run, I thought, oh, this is doable. Not that we pushed it, of course. And I'm sure it's just like that coming to New Zealand. For those of Kiwis who have done it lots of time, that's a piece of cake as long as you pick the right weather for arrival. So the first time round, though, was a bit like me on the Pukekohe track yesterday. Really, really nervous. More cautious than nervous, I suppose, then less cautious, and then just treated it normally. So bear that in mind when you are about to take off. Okay, we've got a couple of people on the go today. We have Revilo. They probably won't hear us because they're at the magical 29 degrees south mark, 171.48, and they have 23 knots of west to southwest, 23 west southwest, 2.5 to 3 meters swell. and just looking over David's shoulder at the model, that's pretty much as the model's told it. 50% cloud cover, but all is well on board Revilo there. And Noumea, good welcome back after your circumnavigation, Jan. Beautiful day in Noumea, as it is on the western side of Fiji and Vanuatu. Just absolutely gorgeous. Not so great in Samoa and Tonga, however, but David will talk about that shortly. Going on to a bit of news, British time watchers, you are now finished on summertime over there. The clocks got moved back in the weekend, so back to normal time in the UK now. Oh, for David, the Red Sox, I'm afraid, the World Series baseball, they are one win away from the title. Unfortunately, the Dodgers have only won one game. So looks like the Red Sox are going to make this very, very short.
I'm going to cry.
Oh, well, never mind. There was a bad shooting in a Pittsburgh synagogue. A nutter went in there, broke in with a can't remember what the gun was used anyway. He killed 11 people and injured quite a few others in a real hate crime against the Jewish community there. We actually had television in the weekend and watched at night time the Invictus Games. Absolutely fantastic. It was in Sydney. The weather was good. Prince Harry, of course, started this off a few years ago. For those that don't know about the Invictus Games, they are for service men and women who have been injured. And it was unbelievable what they managed to do. And the camaraderie, yes, they were in teams representing their country. There was Canada, Great Britain, America, New Zealand, Australia, Holland, Germany, Belgium, Jordan, all sorts of people. But it was more the friendship between them, and I guess the fact that they all have stories to tell and amazing challenges that they have met and continue to meet, and all their families were there. It was just a wonderful event to watch. So
wheelchair basketball.
Good. Yeah, the wheelchair basketball was quite exciting. Amazing what they can do. All right, continuing on the sports theme, the owner of Leicester City Football Club took off in a very large helicopter from the middle of the field. It had engine troubles. I can't tell you his name because he's a Thai man with a name as long as my hand. But it took off from the stadium. It spun out of control and just crashed in a fireball with all dead a very short distance from the Leicester City football ground. That's soccer for those people that are wondering. I was able to look at some of the wondrous fashions. The Duchess Megan. I always love the fashions, particularly on young ladies that are nice and shapely and good and easy to look at. That's why I always watch Suits and what was the program she was in? Can't remember. But anyway, she's no, that wasn't Suits. It was a different one, wasn't it? Was it Suits? Oh well. Anyway, I'm thinking of one before that. She's got a fantastic sense of fashion and wears something appropriate, whether it's dress down or dress up. And she's arrived in New Zealand. Well, both of them have arrived in New Zealand, but of course we're more interested in what Meghan's wearing than Prince Harry. But anyway, they have arrived in New Zealand, rather a sporty day to arrive. It was fairly windy in Wellington. And she spoke yesterday. It's the 125th celebration of women's suffrage, as you probably know, because I've talked to you about that. And we have a female Prime Minister, and we have a female Governor General, Patsy Riddle, I think it is. Anyway, she got to speak on the subject and did a magnificent speech. I guess having been an actress, she is very, very good at that. And so they're in New Zealand at the moment. We had the Auckland Marathon yesterday here in Auckland, a bit drizzly for it, unfortunately. Oh, I haven't told you what the weather is like today. It's actually not very good, which is probably why I forgot about it. We have a barometer of 996 and dropping, 996, folks. Very light northerly, 6 knots at the moment. Drizzly, 16 degrees, and I think there's a bit of blue sky from the north, so about 98% cloud cover. Anyway, the Auckland Marathon was yesterday. Both the women's and men's events were won by Aussies, actually. Not the there is a former Ethiopian in Australia, but it wasn't him. He faded at the end. And there was a record 6 participants hospitalised. A lot of people obviously hadn't done quite the amount of training that they should have, and one is in hospital fairly critical. So that was that yesterday, which we avoided by coming back late. The pipe bomb fellow has been caught in America. The FBI did the old fingerprint trick. They must have looked at all of the packages, and boy, there were a few of them, and found fingerprints that matched a fairly long-serving criminal over there. So they have caught him, and he came quite quietly. I guess he knew he'd be caught at some stage or another. What else is there around? The midterm elections, of course, are heating up over there. And interestingly, there is a group exposing Big Pharma. On both sides, there's people that are getting support from Big Pharma, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, and there is a group exposing the people that are benefiting from in America, ludicrous prices that they have for drugs over there. So that's an interesting one. Sri Lanka, there's a bit of drama in Sri Lanka. This is the Asian news. It's the only Asian news I've got. There's 2 men claiming to be the lawful Prime Minister. Evidently over there, the Prime Minister is appointed by the President. And he decided to sack the current Prime Minister and replace him with the previous one, who unfortunately has a very bad reputation for human rights. So there's a bit of a problem in Sri Lanka, but I don't think any of you guys out there are heading to Sri Lanka in the near future, so we won't worry too much about that. Okay, well, that's about the roundup of the news.
That's a lot of news.
That's a lot of news?
That's a lot of news.
Yeah, a lot of news. Okay, well, the fact that we survived the weekend is a lot of news too.
Yeah.
All right, is there anybody with any specific thing from you guys before we start the weather?
Taranui.
Taranui, whereabouts are you, Graham? You must be pretty close. Are you back home?
Good morning, Christian. We're sitting in Cowie up on a cord, and I just want to know, what do you call when you're racing around the track in the car? Do you call that sporty,
Well, yes, that is sporty. But
that's sporty.
Yeah, that's sporty.
Sporty.
Well, that's the English. Yes, you could use the word sporty for all different sorts of things. Actually, it was flat calm yesterday, so it wasn't really sporty weather. It was, yeah, it's sort of.
The track was rough.
The track was rough, yes, so that made it sporty, definitely. Did you, I presume you've heard where Revilo are, Graham, over?
Yeah, thanks very much, Patricia. We've been talking to him morning and night on the 6516, so he's been coming in pretty good on that. I was talking to him this morning, and a bit bouncy, but they're getting along okay, over.
Yeah, it was interesting that they had that much wind there. It didn't look that much wind on
That's tomorrow.
Well, that's tomorrow. Yeah, they're still going to have that wind to the southwest, but they've got they're fairly well to the west, so they're set up to accommodate it, which is good. All right, and I think we've got Whistler are in Gold Harbour, so we've got a couple of local listeners now. So good morning to you folk. Anybody else?
All right.
No, we're going to pass the microphone, start 5 minutes earlier, and hopefully we'll get there. I'm just checking the streaming at the moment. We've got boats in Opua, and it's wet up there as well. Thank you, John. And Code Blue would like info about the passage from Newcastle to Bundaberg, possibly leaving today or tomorrow, so we'll look at that. And we've got you folk that are looking to get to New Zealand later in the week. So here's David with all of those answers. Well, some of them anyway.
Some of them. Yes. Good morning, everybody. And yes, that was a very sporty track, Graham. The back straight's a pretty long one down there. Patricia was getting up to about
103.
She got to about 205 on the back straight there. But where the bumps are on that track, you're doing about 180, 85. And it is unbelievable. I mean, your glasses are jumping up and down on your head, and you're bouncing in your seat. And at that speed, it's a little disconcerting, I can tell you. Well, it's like that, actually, up in jet stream level, if you were up there. And your plane, as many of you have, and you know the type of waves that you actually get, very similar to waves on the ocean and this bloody track that we were on. Okay, well, at 500 millibar this morning, the shortwave trough is dominating the Southwest Pacific, and it's centered right over New Zealand. The lovely ridge that we had, that Toranui and many others have enjoyed, that's gone, I'm afraid. But there is hope, as the next ridge is over southern Australia as we speak. So let's take a look at the synoptic chart for today. Now we've got a low, of course, it's sitting over New Zealand, as Patricia explained, and that's thanks to the short wave up ahead, above us, with a number of fronts and troughs over the country. It's not too bad here right now, but it's going to get worse as the day goes on. And those fronts and troughs do extend north over the cruising route, so it's not all roses up there as well. Now, we also have a small depression that is just to the southwest of Tonga, maybe about 2 degrees roughly to the southwest. Now, by tomorrow, the New Zealand low is going to turn complex, meaning that we're going to have multiple centers, and it's going to continue to terrorize the country, I'm afraid. Now, the cold front extends across the cruising route and heads all the way up to New Caledonia, while a quasi-stationary front is extending toward Fiji. And that little low that I talked to you about south of Tonga is still going to hang about with its very own trough, actually. Now, the new high, surface high, is going to enter the Tasman by then, and fairly weak at about 1020, roughly 1021 millibar. That's the central pressure. Late Tuesday, I would say, the cold front from the low over New Zealand is going to hammer the loyalties, just brushing perhaps New Caledonia, while the quasi-stationary front is going to get very close or maybe on top of Fiji. And that little low is still persistent. It still sits there. Now, by Wednesday, the Tasman high will probably dominate the Tasman as New Zealand's low starts to mosey to the east. And south of French Polynesia now, our old high, the one that gave us such a wonderful window, that's still there. And it's more or less, as I said, south of French Polynesia. It's still strong, 1030 millibar, 1030. And it's feeding very warm, very moist air to New Zealand's low. And that's going to keep the low rather jazzed up. So we've got a lot of moisture and warm air coming in and chillier air on the other side. So those types of air streams of different density, as you know by now, don't mix, they clash. So that's what's going to keep things going. So the way the isobars are shaped, I'm afraid that the cruising routes are going to show headwinds and not ideal for a passage to New Zealand. The winds on Wednesday expect south-southwest 20 to 25 knots down to 25 south, and from about 28 south to New Zealand, 25 to 30 knots, and there's going to be areas of 35 knots in gusts. Now, the headwinds are going to continue Thursday at 25 south, then fresh and rather frisky, that's a new one, frisky, southwest winds from 30 south to New Zealand will be about 20 to 25 knots, and winds up in the Fiji area will be nice fresh trades, about 20 knots in the mean. Now the high center will move to about halfway between Oz and New Zealand. The center roughly around 2930 south, and again about halfway across. So looking at Saturday now, the Tasman to New Zealand will have quite fresh northwest winds, and the speed of these winds depends where you are geographically, but roughly 20 to 25 knots near New Zealand, and if you happen to be in the mid-Tasman, 25 to 30 knots, a little bit stronger there. Well, that is going to drive cross seas for the route, and that's going to make for a bouncy journey if you're on your way at that point. So the question is, and we had a ton of emails come in. I'm sorry that we weren't able to answer them because of our activities, if you will, this weekend. But the question of leaving today for New Zealand or not, and all I can say is Chameleon would not. But that's just our opinion. As you know, we never give advice. Now, leaving Thursday does look a little bit tempting. You'd possibly need to get a little westing in, maybe not. But we'll take a look at the situation over the next couple of days and see what shakes out. Now, the long-term progs show surprisingly horrendous-looking convective activity up in the islands, in north, from the islands north to 10.5 to 10 south. And this is around 9 November. When also at that time, a very nice broad high looks like it's going to dominate the Southwest Pacific. So we'll just have to be a little bit patient on making our break from the islands, and we'll do our best to offer an opinion on getting out of Dodge, if you will, as soon as we can. So stay tuned for the next day or so, and we'll be looking at all of the models and try to give you an idea. I know many of you are raring to go. Okay, now on to Tonga, and a trough is affecting the group, but numerous breaks are quite evident on satellite imagery. So expect periods of cloudiness, showers, and thunderstorms. This is the time of the year now when we're going to see quite a few thunderstorms up in the tropics, and they'll be evident today and into tomorrow. Now, the actuals this morning, Baval had northeast 7 knots, scattered to broken, the barometer 1010. The Hapais were calm, scattered to broken there as well, barometer also 1010. Tongatapu, northeast at 5 knots, scattered to broken as well, and the barometer 1011, 1011. So not much of a pressure gradient for the group. So today, expect northeast winds getting up to about 15 knots by lunchtime. Very light right now, but they'll pick up a little bit. Tomorrow we'll see a shift. The winds back to the northwest, fairly light, and they'll be in the 10 knot range, I think. Now, those of you in Samoa, Whitehawk is up there, I think. Today by around lunchtime. Samoa is on the edge of that trough that we talked about, so those folks in Samoa could expect cloud and whatnot right at the edge of this trough. But the winds, mostly northerlies, quite light. Tomorrow east to northeast, also pretty light. The winds are going to come back with a vengeance by the weekend. Strong trades, I would say 25 to 30 knots out of the southeast. Maybe a little bit higher or lower on the wind scale than that. We'll have to see what happens. But there definitely will be pretty fresh to strong trades. You can count on that, I think. Over to Fiji now. The satellite loop, as Patricia mentioned, shows the trough edge over Vanua Levu and the northern Lao, while the Azores, Viti Levu, Kandavu, most of the Coral Sea area looks pretty nice. And that's the loop this morning. Lots of blue sky. So today, expect some cloud and showers for the northern bits, but fine for the rest of the group. Rotuma's different. Rotuma's weather is grim. They're under the trough, so if you're there, expect cloud showers, thunderstorms, the whole ball of wax. Not very nice. So for most of Fiji today, expect light south to south-southwest winds, but northwest for the Lau. This is around lunchtime. And later today, virtually south to south-southwest, everywhere. I would say everywhere. Tomorrow, mostly southerlies, fairly light still. But Thursday, the trades will return. Looks like southeast, getting up to about 20 knots. And by the weekend, we're looking at 25 knots, maybe 30 knots up in the Wallis and Futuna area. But it'll be pretty fresh winds by the weekend for sure, and well, before that as well. Now over to Vanuatu, imagery shows beautiful weather, so enjoy. Even the wind speed is quite light, really. Mostly southerlies from Fate northward, but westerlies from Erromango to Anishu, but light air. Tomorrow, light and variable as well. Southerly quadrant winds in the south, east to southeast from Fate northward. And again, regarding the trade winds, they're going to be back on Wednesday. So we'll be looking at southeast 15 to 20, and that's in the Wednesday time frame. So between now and then, much lighter than that. New Caledonia looks very good too. Scattered cloud, but plenty of suntan opportunities. Winds for the lagoon, south to south-southwest in the 10 knot range, and that's perfect for the elos. The same direction tomorrow, but a wee bit stronger. I would expect 15 to 20. Now conditions this morning, these are actuals. Amity Light was south-southwest 10. Isle of Pines southwest 5. And Nemea south-southwest 8. So expect showers tomorrow, I think, from that frontal activity being pushed up from New Zealand. And I mentioned that's also going to be affecting loyalties. In fact, they'll be getting the worst of it there in the loyalties. So that sums up the weather. And anyone with any questions, comments, come now. And I'll give this over to the boss. And we do have a note or two here from me. So here she is.
You dropped the microphone. Anyway, Code Blue is looking to go from New Cal to Bundaberg. Quite a few people have ended up in Bundaberg. So we'll have a look at that sort of today, tomorrow time frame. And I know Erie 2 and Serrani are looking for some wind, but they knew it was going to be fairly calm.
Looks good this week.
David has just said, Judy, that it looks good this week. David, I'll pass the microphone.
Mostly easterlies, and there's convective activity in that, so don't be surprised that you get a few squalls or two. But for the most part, I would say the winds will be maybe in the 15 to 20 knot range. It's going to vary. I don't know what your ETA is, but that's pretty much what it looks like between now and the weekend. So there you go on that.
What about the guys that are way over there?
The people that are way over there?
About 23. Yeah, we're just looking at if there's any hope for Serrani and Erie too. Good morning, Al, if you're listening. We've got them at 23, I think it is, and where is Al? 23.48 and 1:58.23. Serrani's a little bit further behind. So let's have a look if they're going to get the motor off anytime soon. Serrani reported quite a negative current, so they'll be looking to keep the engine ticking to mitigate that problem. But here's David.
Well, I haven't looked at any of the current charts, but the currents are very, very difficult. You can't predict them, and they're changing all the time, so hopefully that'll change for you. I just happen to be looking at Thursday right now, and at that position, and maybe out to 155 east, I see east-southeast about 15 knots, maybe even,
Monday.
15 to 20. So, like I said, I just happened to have it on Thursday. Looking at tomorrow, tomorrow at about lunchtime, and you're at 158 at the moment. Oh boy, I would say still light air, south-southeast. Now, there is a trough that's running from Bundaberg to New Caledonia. You could be smack dab in the middle of it tomorrow. So the mean winds are light. They're looking at about 10, 12 knots east-southeast. But there could be squally conditions, and if that's the case, you're going to get periods of gusts and whatnot in there, particularly at nighttime. So that's tomorrow at lunch that I see that trough. And then it starts to break up a little bit, but the weather that's along the coast is still showing quite a bit of convective activity. That's on Wednesday, as an example, from Harvey Bay north to almost 20 south. A lot of bit of convection, and the winds back to the east-northeast at that time. That's Wednesday. You wouldn't be there by Wednesday, I'm sure, but that's what it looks like. And that bit of activity lifts by Thursday. It gets up to about 20 south, so the Harvey Bay, Bundaberg area looks like it's clear at that point, with the winds getting very close to the coast, easterlies. That's sort of a pain in the neck direction, I suppose. We always hate the wind directly behind us, but that's what it looks like. Over.
Thank you for that. And yes, well, I was just looking at those folk coming into what actually in Opua. It looks like that main part of the rain band has gone, which is good. It's flopped off to our east, just a little bit left down with us at the moment, but looks like it will be just on and off, a little bit of shower every now and again for those folk trying to get their boat back to normal in Opua. All right, is there any questions from anybody? No, it sounds like it will be a very peaceful couple of days before people get on the way again. So good morning to you all up there. We'll leave you with the frequency, and hope you enjoy what looks like, in most places anyway, a pretty decent day up there in the tropics. Cheers all, and we'll be back again tomorrow.
Go
ahead, Graham.
Yeah, we couldn't talk to you, obviously, when we're arriving over